Good morning and welcome. My name is Dr. Michelle Steffenhagan. You can call me Michelle. I am here to talk with you about living with purpose so that we can join God in restorative work. And I want to let you know that we will be having a conversation after the fact. So during my presentation, feel free to put some notes or comments or questions in the chat. And I look forward to that dialogue with you after our time together here. Okay, so what does it mean for us to live purposefully? I don't know about you as student leaders, but I've been in higher education for a while. And one of the things that I notice is that every once in a while, I'll come across a student and we're having a conversation and they are just identifying that they're really disappointed because they don't know what they're supposed to do with their life. And although it's not maybe spoken in so many words, it's as if they expected God to almost like magically bestow upon them this one thing that they're supposed to do with their life for the rest of their life. And they're expecting clarity in just like an instant. Now, I certainly do not want to sound like I'm undermining the good and important work of the Holy Spirit, right? Some of us might feel like we had this encounter with God where it was really clear to us how we could join God in the renewal of things, right? With our life. And that's not always how it works, right? As we're co authoring our lives with God, sometimes there's a little bit of a dance. Sometimes there is new clarity or new insights that are revealed to us over time. And I would posit that living with purpose or becoming more aware of our purpose is actually an ongoing experience. And in order to help make my point or help maybe give us some insight into, as student leaders, what does it mean for us to live with purpose? And what does it mean for us to help others move toward purpose? I think it would be helpful for us to look at the research. So, I want to start by defining purpose. Purpose is defined in a lot of different ways. And as any good researcher does, it's useful for us to get on the same page by just saying, okay, in this conversation, here's how we are conceptualizing this term. And so I am pulling from two of the leading researchers on purpose, Bronk and Damon. Damon has been doing research on purpose for a really long time. He is a researcher at Stanford, and I may reference him quite a bit. But the way that we're going to talk about purpose is we're talking about an overarching intention to contribute to the world. And so there's three components of purpose that I like to think about. Or excuse me, I do like to think about these, but better stated that we see in research, that there's three dimensions, right? One, that there's something on our horizon. There's a goal dimension to purpose. There's something that we're moving toward. A purpose is focused on a goal, an overarching goal. This isn't just, I want to run a marathon. This is something that is going to take time. And it's potentially, there's lots of small goals or medium goals underneath that one goal. Not that running marathon doesn't require that, but we're looking at kind of our life is directed around something on the horizon that we're moving toward over time. The second component to a purpose is that it's meaningful. This is personal to me. This gives me a sense of purpose, a sense that this is meaningful to me. It helps me start to understand or answer the questions, why are we here and why am I here? And then the third component of purpose is that it is an opportunity for us to give to the world beyond ourselves, right? I can contribute something that is meaningful, something that I've been working toward, and something that goes beyond myself. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not something that's giving to oneself, right? It's giving me a sense of purpose, but I'm also contributing to my neighbors or to my community or to the world, right? It could be one other person, it could be a dozen, but I'm giving of myself for another. Now, researchers originally designed the scales that we were measuring purpose around two of these variables, just that there was a goal on the horizon and that was meaningful. It wasn't until 2018 that the Claremont Institute developed another scale that helps us really conceptualize purpose more in a more robust way by including that third beyond the self dimension of purpose. Okay, so what do we know about purpose and young people? Research suggests, and this is coming from Damon at Stanford, that 20% of young people between the ages of 12 and 26 have reported committing to purpose, and that 55 of them have not yet made a commitment to purpose. So that indicates that a lot of people are either feeling like, you know what, I kind of know what my purpose is, and I'm moving toward I'm moving toward trying to uncover this, trying to figure this out. Now, a couple things. One, you might have many purposes in your life. Perhaps right now you really feel like my life's purpose is about getting this degree so that I can go get a job that helps me impact this community, right? I'm not just getting this degree for this like piece of paper that's going to be hung on my wall. I am moving toward this degree because it's going to help me, maybe even while I'm getting my degree, I am like interacting with my peers in a way that allows me to get to know God on a deeper level. That could be one of your life's purposes. It's not that we just have one purpose throughout our lifetime. However, there's 25% of young people in the study that was done. That was quite a robust study, between the ages of 12 and 26, who reported that they were uninterested in finding or exploring purpose. Now, as someone who is a deep believer in Jesus, this is actually pretty concerning to me. As a person of faith, Christian faith, I believe that that we are here on this earth to join God in restorative work, that our life is to be lived for uh, the benefit of others, recognizing that I am part of a complex system, right? And that God is inviting us to move back to get glimpses of God's original purpose for God's people, which is to live in shalom, right? In harmony, the removal of barriers so that we can live with a sense of peace with ourselves, with each other, with the earth, and ultimately with God. And that God is inviting us to join that movement back toward God's original purpose for God's people. So when I see that 25% of young people are just like uninterested in purpose, that piqued my interest. And then I also saw a report, and this was a scientific peer-reviewed study of an institution that did another research study, and they found that 81.2% of their college students reported that happiness was their number one reported purpose. And the majority of students in that study did not report that making a difference beyond themselves was one of their purposive goals. This was in 2017. I got to be real with you, that like stopped me in my tracks. 81% of students were not interested in a beyond themselves focus, and were most concerned, over 50% were not interested in a beyond themselves focus, and an 81% happiness was their number one purpose for living. Wow. I'm not suggesting that happiness is not a value that we can move toward. I'm not suggesting that happiness is bad, but when that becomes our number one purpose, I'm just curious. I find myself wondering. 37% of college graduates reported that their work contributes to their life meaning, which is fantastic. And we can also see that that's less than 0.5% of our college graduates who say they see how their work contributes to their life purpose. No, I'm not suggesting that you have to go out and get the perfect job that aligns with your perfect purpose. But I think the disconnect, right? Even if my job, I used to be in residential life and housing, and I used to tell my students that, yes, making relationships with students is fantastic, but also when you're taking care of their maintenance reports and putting in their clogged toilets and getting that fixed for them in an effective and efficient manner, they're growing in their trust, right? And so I would say that fixing the toilets and making sure that the toilets are fixed for students is actually deeply connected to a beyond the self focus, to meaningful work, right? And so when college grads are having that much difficulty making the connection between their work and something that contributes to their life meaning, it causes me pause, and it makes me curious. Okay, so as we're considering our faith, right, how do we move toward becoming more purposeful or help others do that so that we can join God in restorative and redemptive work? What does that mean for us, right? And I want to tell you a couple of things about the value of purpose before we go any further, right? Because maybe you're like, Michelle, happiness is not a bad goal. And perhaps, it's not. And happiness and, right, a sense of well-being might be what I would invite us to think about. So purpose, right? If we're thinking about these dimensions of purpose that gives us something that we're looking at in the future, we're trying to move toward. Purpose that is meaningful, right? This personally is meaningful to me on a deep level. And 3, it's allowing me to give beyond myself. That is correlated with life satisfaction. It is correlated with living longer lives. It is correlated with positive emotions, less boredom. It is correlated with contentment and self-esteem, and is correlated with an enduring sense of well-being, right? And I would suggest that where happiness might have some ebbs and flows, well-being is maybe a deeper sense, an enduring sense of well-being, right? Where we're really looking now at the essence of our soul and the different dimensions of our life that influence our soul. So those are some of the correlations that we find in adults. In young adults, purpose is correlated similarly with a higher sense of well-being, life satisfaction, more positive emotions, fewer negative emotions, predictive of overall happiness, right? That's a result of having purpose. It's also associated with grit. If you've ever read Angela Duckworth work, Worth's work, excuse me, this approaching long-term goals with perseverance and passion, and then a higher perceived sense of self-efficacy in college. So purpose is connected with all types of great things. Now, I want to think about how we can move toward purpose. And what does that look like? What could that look like for us? Now, researchers over long periods of time, and I can send you my bibliography if you're interested, but purpose development begins in adolescence and young adulthood, even though a lot of our research until the 2000s really focused on adults. And so we're still in this, just the first couple decades of really getting to understand how is purpose developed in adolescents and young adults, and a lot is left to be learned. However, fostering purpose is oftentimes done in community. It's oftentimes influenced by relationships. In adolescence, this can be significant adult figures, right, who are supporting exploration of interests, right? Not being overly directive, you have to do this, or this is what you should do, but just allowing students, young people, kids to explore their interests. Adults and mentors who give young people the opportunity to be kind of courageous in their self-awareness and self-reflection, allowing for new perspectives to emerge instead of saying like, well, this is who you are. I think this is what's important to you. Just allowing that kind of creative and the vulnerability of exploring self, that can be really supportive. Also, and I think this is important for student leaders to consider, engaging with peers and mentors in meaningful dialogue that honors self-discovery and accepting of new values and new beliefs, right? And again, that can be an exploration process that's done through dialogue, or that's done by going out and having experiences, right? Noticing what is getting my heart going. What do I find myself thinking about? Educators can also be important, right? We're on a college campus, or you're on a college campus, and by helping young people set goals and clarifying values, fostering gratitude, all of these things can help us foster purpose. And then by going out and serving our communities, and serving not because we think we should or we ought, but serving in ways that are energizing to us. Oftentimes, those help foster purpose. So I want to share a little bit about my own research before we go into some conversations around purpose and what does it mean for you as student leaders to kind of join students. I'm just going to show you a couple of slices from my research. I was looking at purpose and these three components of purpose, and I looked at a couple different variables, but one of those was gender. My research was consistent with previous studies, and research indicates that there's no real difference found between gender and sense of purpose. However, when I was looking at the three dimensions of purpose, I noticed, or the data suggested, that women were more likely to have a goal direction and a beyond the self focus. So, of those three dimensions, women were more likely to have a goal dimension and a beyond the self focus, which might indicate that when we're having conversations with women, it might be useful to help them, or to explore, to ask good open-ended questions about how are they thinking about maybe their interests, or what how they're planning to give back, or that goal on their horizon, with their sense of meaning, right? Perhaps women are coming to college with an idea of how they want to serve and with an idea of what they want to do, but maybe they haven't quite considered how that is meaningful to them. Now, with men, I would be wondering if there's room for us to consider purpose. What does wake you up in the middle of the night, or when you wake up? What are you thinking about, or what are do you find yourself most curious about? What of the world's problems are you most drawn to? That might be good questions, or those might be good questions for men. Now, am I suggesting that we need to put men and women in boxes? Absolutely not. I really want to be careful here that we're not overgeneralizing. And it might be useful as we go into some of the conversations with our fellow students to just think about the questions or the reflections that we're asking. And maybe just wondering, do they have a goal? And if they have a goal, is that goal connected to giving back? And if they have that, how does that connect to their personal meaning and perhaps their faith? They're joining God, they're co authoring their life with God. The other thing that I looked at was faith communities. This was really interesting because there's a lot of research that suggests faith communities can be really supportive of young people. And so I was looking at faith community development, right? Essentially going to church. And what I found was, I think, interesting. Students who participated weekly in faith communities were more likely to meet the criteria for purpose than students who participated in faith communities a few times a semester or not at all. And we found similar results with students who participated in faith communities 2 or 3 times a month. They were also more likely to meet the criteria for purpose. And then if we're looking at just those 3 dimensions, the data revealed those same differences in the likelihood that students would meet the beyond the self dimension for for purpose, which essentially suggests that being connected to a faith community may help someone foster their purpose, may help a young person uh, feel more connected to something they want to do that helps them give beyond themselves. I want to read you a quote from one of the scholars on the researchers on purpose. Moran says this: networks or faith communities orchestrate networks to learn beyond the self values, build connections with others who shared their values, and engage in outreach activities, mission trips, and mentoring of young children. Religion also has a comforting effect on helping people feel less stressful. And so I want to encourage you, as you're thinking about conversations and what does it mean for you as a peer to dialogue with other students around purpose, right? I'm hoping that we're thinking about some of the different variables that might be present, some of the different ways that we can support young people as they are moving toward purpose, right? There's no magic formula. As much as we might want there to be, there is no magic formula. And this can take some time and energy. For some of us, this takes years, right? And an exploration process that can be challenging, right? It's not about the approval of other people. It's really getting in touch with myself and paying attention to the whispers and the nudging of the Holy Spirit, and maybe some of the God-given interests and abilities, right? And really, community matters. Our relationship matters. Your conversations with your peers matter. And so, as we engage in this conversation, I look forward to talking more with you, thinking about your own life purpose, maybe giving yourself some grace if you don't feel like you have this all figured out, and wondering what it would be like for you with your mentors, or for you with the students that you're leading, to have some of these conversations around purpose. Thanks for your time.